thank you all for checking out this week's episode. Once again, I'm John. If you like what you heard and saw today, subscribe to our YouTube channel, find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and check out our brand new merch store with hats, coffee mugs, t-shirts, other cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Again, thank you all for support. Be safe, and see you next week. How's it going, everyone? John here, the host of Spirit Talk, and today we get to welcome one of my favorite bands, going back to 2013 with their album release, Time and Pressure. Devour the Day. Joey and Blake are here, and we're going to talk about their music career, creativity, their outlets they go through, whether it's painting and shoes, writing music. Two of the most unique, cool people I've had the privilege of touring with, working alongside, being on the road with, and it's great to have you guys on here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you for saying such kind words. That feels good to hear.
Yeah, no, and I'll send you the money after for making me say that.
Yeah,
no,
tell us
so
more. Tell us more.
yeah, for sure. Tell us about us. Tell us about us. I kind of want to start. I know I just recently had the privilege of with Shinedown, and we did that those tours, the tour in Canada, and it was so cool. I've always loved Pop Evil, but the interesting thing, I know Joey, you were in Pop Evil, or at least at the time touring with them pre-COVID. I know we did some shows before then, but when we got on the run and you were officially in the band, I remember after you guys hit the stage, and then I remember this other singer jump up there with Lee for one of their songs, and I remember just looking at the going, I know this guy. I don't know how I know him, but the voice is very similar. And then the next day, I don't know how you would do. Blake kind of put his hand out when we were doing walking backstage, and he was like, "Hey, I'm Blake." And I was like, "Holy fuck! Like this is Blake from Devour the Day," which, unbeknownst to you guys are one of my favorite bands. And so it was so cool to kind of have that full circle moment where I get to be on the road with Devour the Day. And I know you guys are both, I know Joey was out there performing. I know Blake, you guys were out there actually writing and staying creative out there with the guys of Pop Evil. But it was just such a cool moment that it's such a small world that I get to check off a bucket list band that I could say I toured with.
Oh yeah, that was it's funny you say that because it's like after seeing you as the guy in the suit with the most intimidating look following Shinedown around for like a year, it was really cool to know that you listened to Devour the Day, that you were such an approachable, cool guy. So that whole tour for us was like it was a lesson in like you know, I guess preconceived notions of what people are going to be like. And I also give Lee and Pop Evil a lot of credit for being so open to. I mean, I brought up the idea of bringing Blake out. It was a big deal that they were, Lee was open to that and having Blake out, and so that it was actually really, really cool. I hadn't toured without Blake for 20 years, so I was also happy that he was going to be out there. It was going to feel really weird.
Yeah, well, I remember, and we still talk about that. I was talking to, I think, Barry and Eric the other day. That Montreal crowd was freaking insane at that arena there. And then obviously the Pop Evil when Blake was up there, like just seeing people react to something like that wasn't planned. I think that's the coolest thing when it comes to touring, those moments where, oh, these bands are here, but you don't know who the guest singer is or stuff like that. Like I just thought it was a really rad moment.
Yeah, that was a strange thing to be on tour and only have to sing one song because usually you prep all day for your set, and it's like I'm prepping about 5 minutes right before I go on just to sing a song and get off. So I
just living the life,
yeah.
just riding around singing one song a night.
No, but I was to be invited to do something like that, one is just it's just a really cool thing because I don't think that happens very often, and it was so much fun to be out there with my buddy and these guys that Pop Evil and Devour the Day have a lot of history together. Egypt Central, even back in the day, we toured together as kids. So if you'd have told me back then that this was going to be, you were going to go on tour,
you would not have believed me.
Right? Like you're going to be singing with Lee on stage. I'm like, that's insane. But Lee especially, we spent so much time apart that all I have of him is this memory, from way back when. And for him to, take Joey or, just bring him in, but then not say, like, we don't want you to have anything to do with Devour the Day anymore. You are now Pop Evil. Lee really embraced us. And I thought that was like one of the coolest thing. And, so much so that Joey was like, what if we had Blake out and we can write and, I don't know, maybe do a song and, for Lee to just, just open that up and with, open arms. That's right.
Well, he's a
was pretty
champion.
surprising.
Everything you see about Lee, and I toured with him back when this is pre Joey, with Nickelback in 2017. We did a whole run with them, and he's always been like a champion of other people's successes. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit with Joey, with your artwork when it comes to the shoes and stuff, but it's in terms of you guys working with him from Devour the Day to Pop Evil, vice versa. There has to be a level of trust, right? That comes both ways, where he has to trust your songwriting ability, which is obviously amazing, and you have to trust him to do what you do and portray it like how he does it in a Pop Evil way. And it's like, can you kind of touch upon the level of trust it takes both ways?
Yeah, I think there's two sides of it. There's the creative element, which is that first part of it, and for Blake and I, it does spearhead our decision making, even to a fault, to where it leads us to places where we don't necessarily have the same opportunities, but it doesn't matter. Art first, and Lee understands that separation that we're talking about, that first, and so there was that cool part of it where we're creating together. He has a very open kind of the best idea wins. Don't be afraid to throw away ideas. We're digging deeper just to throw it away. Some of the things that we live by as writers, or that we really feel convicted about, he runs parallel to that, and that was awesome. But I think what's also cool is that on the other side of it, the selling the artwork, right, like the business side of it, Lee's done such a good job of staying fluid, and I think that's just a really big part of why Blake and I have been able to have a career that we're really happy with. I mean, success is rated by whatever, but we're really happy with what we did. And I think he is, because he's been able to kind of stay fluid, and you feel good living in the process. And I think that the fact that the process matters to him so much, and it does to us, that's a trust. Because once you get out of the process, then you have like a million voices telling you what you should do with your art. But I think that trust was built because of the art first mentality. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of trust, because we were going to spend a considerable amount of time touring and not writing for our other projects to work on that. And so, that could easily be shut down once all the songs are in, and be like, well, these songs didn't make it for, political reasons. But I think that it created a really healthy environment for us to work on music, for lack of a better word, competitively, with some of the best writers that are out there working on rock songs. And to make it was like a sigh of relief, like, okay,
Right.
all of this effort and everything that we put into it, and everybody says, if you want to be in the rock business, you got to make sacrifices. But that is very, very, very true. And it's not like a sacrifice of like hard work, because I don't think there's a job in the world where you don't have to. Maybe there's a couple that you don't have to work hard to
There's
get
a few,
paid,
yeah.
but for in this situation, you are making sacrifices back home, and for us to go out and be writing towards somebody else's project entirely, there's a lot of faith there,
Yeah.
But Pop Evil as a band, they just have this positivity around them, and it was really refreshing for Joey and I, who have been down a million roads and run into some seriously thick walls,
Some locked doors. Yeah. Like, sorry, you're not affiliated with this
Very thick
manager.
wall.
You can't get into the club, or you
Right.
won't. I mean, Blake and I making a hard stance on not signing a record deal years ago. Like, we're going to build our own label. We're going to take our bands. We're tired of knowing in our heart that we're not successful. Like, somebody else is actually, you know what I mean?
Right.
Coming up in Memphis,
No,
watching rappers do it,
Yeah.
you know it's possible.
That's so true, because
And-
you're having a meeting with somebody who's promising you, I promise you that
The
if you work with
world.
us,
Yeah.
10 million streams on any one of the songs that we put out. And then you ask the question like, well, how are you going to do that? And they don't have an answer. And it's like, well, then why am I signing with you knowing that there's a guy from my hometown with a completely, self-funded budget, and he is single-handedly just doing these incredible things. It's like, oh, you just want to know, can you do it too? And we've been pouring into that for a while now.
Yeah.
Were there people out there when you were doing a decision to do your own record label, manage yourself type thing, and these difficult decisions where a lot of people fall into trap holes and really bad relationships? The moment you guys decided to do your own record label, was there like the first week or month or so where you're kind of like, holy hell, like what did I do? What did we do? Like were you scared at all, or did you know you got to the point where it's like it's now or never and we got to bet on ourselves?
I think there's a bit of like just the battered syndrome of like, we had definitely taken enough punishment. I mean, we got our first record deal and made a $200,000 record when we were 20 years old. After the beginning of Egypt Central is just such an unrealistic portrait of how you get into the business.
Crazy.
I mean, it's after 8 shows, dude. Like, we get signed by Jason Flom. It's a massive deal. We all buy Nextel phones. I mean, it's like, it's a big deal, We're like, what? Yeah, are you rich? I feel rich.
Yeah, they're the Nextel with the walkie-talkie.
Yeah.
We all made it. Okay, we had these motherfuckers. And I think, just to answer your question, like, get to it, coming from that place and then like literally having the world sit on you over and over again, just in an industry standard, there's a reality to knowing that the music business is super fickle and that there are no guarantees. And so, to be real, even yesterday, as I'm making sure that we're preparing my elements of our label, the artwork or whatever it is, and then Blake's trying to get mixes ready and stuff like that, I'm scared it's not going to work out. I'm scared that it's not going to validate me the way that I want from my peers, my dad, whatever that is, And I think that that fear is actually super healthy. It kind of like keeps me like aggressively protective of it, because it is such a tender thing. And so like, I like that fear in a lot of ways. It means I care about it a lot, and that hasn't gone away in 3 or 4 years. And we have seen like an insane steady climb on our stuff. But when you go to bed at night and you know that you kind of overcame those fears and it is still yours,
right?
Like that's a feeling that's better than any like number one or tour we've ever gotten or anything. For me, in my heart, So, but to answer your question, I'm generally scared about it every moment. I want it to succeed, I mean, that's just how it is.
It's I remember, I think it was 2013, and this is back when I was going to concerts and festivals as a fan. Now I don't want to go. Like, if I'm not working, I hate music, right? But I remember going to Rock on the Range solely to hear White Rabbit by Egypt Central. And that's only happened a couple of times. And there was another show when I was living in Baltimore, the government, I paid to go see Devour the song Good Man. And it's the only reason, it's weird for me when you look back and you kind of go, not only was I ignorant to the fact that the body of work itself is really good, but I went to these shows for a specific song, right? And I didn't know nothing about Egypt Central. I knew nothing about Devour the Day, but I went there for a song that resonated with me when I heard it the first time. I still get the same reaction now. And for you guys to be, I mean, obviously I'm one of whoever. I know there's other people that had the same reaction to those songs, but specifically to White Rabbit, to see the longevity that song has, the number of streams, and it's just crazy that there was only that one album it's weird how a song affects people and changes the trajectory of a band. It just, I don't know, like if you can kind of talk about like the power of just a song, because if I didn't know you guys now, I would still in my back of my mind going, man, I saw that band play that song live. And that song, whether it's White Rabbit or Good Man or what's the other one you guys do that I love? The Drifter on the 2013 album, where I'm just like, every time I hear these songs, even if I hated the band or the guys or these guys were no longer around, I'd still have those moments I had where I listened to the song and I'm continually blown away by it.
Well, thank you, first of all. Yeah, do you want to speak into that?
Well, I wouldn't even know what to say other than I appreciate the fact that you listen and you care, and that feels good.
Like when you
Dude,
release those songs, like White Rat, when it first comes out, when it's on the album, like Good Man or whatever, do you realize those are going to be the big hits that people resonate with your band? Like, how do you know? What was the moment when you played White Rabbit, if you heard it the first time on the radio or play it live, that holy shit, this is going to be a song that people are going to continually listen to even today?
yeah, you know, I will say, I can't lie about the fact that when the songs that have gone on to be our biggest songs, I would say I knew it was special within the first 30 minutes of writing it.
Yeah.
Blake and I wrote White Rabbit in about 3 or 4 hours on like
Crazy.
a Thursday with Skid Mills. It was just the three of us, and John hadn't actually made it to the studio yet. And when John got there, which ironically, I love telling this, it's the first time Blake sang a full song. So in its original form,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
actually a Devour the Day song, really, when you think about it. So it's the first time we had written something like that for this. So that was a thing. But
Yeah.
when which is just cool to me, whatever. But John comes in, and John was like, I would say on borderline teary-eyed, because he just said, if I know anything, it's the business side, and this is a fucking hit song. And I don't know what that really means other than like people see potential in it.
Yeah, for sure.
But what that song has done, 100 million streams. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And then I'll like look at other bands that are like completely relevant right now,
Right.
and we've got twice as many streams as their biggest song. And I'm like, it's something beyond us. And as much as I want to take credit for any of that, I just feel like, obviously we're standing on the giants of Lewis Carroll's story. And then beyond that, I just think it's really connected with the idea that sometimes you go the wrong way and you find yourself in a place that you just feel lost. And that's really the extent of the concept. And there is no real like, and here's how you get out. Here's my self-help. And I think that Good Man is the exact same way.
Yeah.
It's not like there's this resolve of like, I'm the lead singer and here's the 3 points you need to follow at the end of the song to be happy. It's literally just like, here's the moment. I'm crying out to God. I'm lost, whatever it is. Even if I don't believe in him, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that just resonates with human beings. And, that's my personal opinion as to why I think those particular songs have done so well.
And I think that the Good Man too, especially if the last couple of years with the pandemic, like everyone was having those bad days with the mental health, depression, the suicide thoughts. And I know for me, when some of those days where it's just like, holy shit, like how far are these goalposts gonna go? It would be music that would kind of pull me back, be like, well, I could still let's get through this and figure it out. A song like that, where it's just such an anthem about the people that are in the trenches, just fighting every day, and just I don't know. It's such a fascinating thing. It's like I'm always just like, what if you guys had released White Rabbit and Good Man on the same album, no matter what the entity was? And it's like that would just be a completely different game changer. But I also believe that stuff happens for a reason. And it's like when you see a band or writers go through from White Rabbit to Good Man to the next thing, and it's going to come, right? There'll be a next thing after that. It's like, it's almost more, I think I respect that more because it's like these people never gave up, right? I think people are using music, and especially like Devour the Day, where it's like people look to you guys as that inspiration. I think there is something to that.
Agreed. I totally do. And I think that we had a certain frame of mind about the music industry. And I want to say that like we had this giant epiphany internally where the two of us like talked it out. But I think the biggest adjustment that actually happened was our label had been absorbed by Fearless, Razor and Tie. There was like a big falling out. A couple of bands had just been dropped in it. Some got picked up. They said they were going to release our record, this record called Signals. which they kind of did. I mean, they essentially just put it out, no money. But the marketing plan that we got, it was what we had was so small. Instead of like trying to market, we came up with this idea for this docu-series called Soundtrack to Your Story. And it was really the idea that we were going to go around the country, put on free concerts, and have people come to the appearances or shows, or whatever, and tell us why, like, tell us their story. And in that, it really changed the narrative for both of us as to like who the hero of the music industry is. And sometimes, I mean, I was in Los Angeles last week trying to explain this, and it went right over people's head. But it's like, you're not the hero of the story in this transaction of emotion that's happening. You're just the fucking soundtrack. The hero is the person listening who's worried about their daughter's wedding, who's worried about their son's driver's test or whatever, and you're in the background making them feel better. And you should be honored. You should be honored to be a part of that soundtrack. And I think that maintaining that mentality had really stuck with Blake and I. It really did. And I think that that's really what shifted us into this idea of like, we'd rather have our business and what we're doing be authentic than to take any shortcuts at this point, even though we're older and we probably should.
Yeah, for sure. Think smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
When it comes to the writing process, like how is that? Like, if you guys are, like, say you're the middle of your writing process, right? Are you guys, when you get home or you guys see each other, are you always taking notes on paper and notebooks, singing into your phone? Like, how does that come together, and how do you guys go through ideas that, like, how truthful? I mean, obviously, I think you are, but hey, Blake, that idea doesn't work, or Joey, that doesn't make any sense. We should do this way. Like, is it tough to get to that compromise where ultimately you're both on the same page with stuff?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of any band, any group, even working on anything, not just being in a band. It's very similar. Anything creative, or you want your voice to be heard. You want to listen to your friends and the people you're working with, their ideas. You want to be open to it. So you have to to toe the line between what you want and what they want, and know that you're just trying to make a better song, and like making a judgment call in real time whether or not what you're voicing your opinion for is because it was your idea, or because it's the way that you vision it, or if it's actually for the better of the song. That's hard to do, especially when you're you're under the gun, when you have the pressure of people wanting music as soon as possible. You have deadlines, you have all these things. But I think that Joey and I, as two writers, have gone through just about every scenario that you could. We've blindly written songs that had a lot of success, and then we've under the gun written songs that have a lot of success, and a lot of songs that they're not our favorites, but they are part of our musical catalog. And I don't know if you've watched that the Beatles documentary where
Yes, fascinating.
it's so good, right?
Yeah.
And you really see the dynamic between the members of the band. And I think that that's probably the most brutal, honest way that most bands write together. Some guys are just kind of there. Some guys are contributing solely from their heart. Some guys are contributing because they know they've got to get stuff done. And some guys just are on a different planet writing things that don't, work, but
Right.
It's like, that's kind of what makes the chemistry what it is. And I think that we, Joey and I have, we've become strong in our own right. And then we've also picked up and supported each other as writers through difficult times. We've had life happen.
Yeah, of course.
And that is probably the most, I would say, the biggest wrench that you could throw in the creative process. Because what do you do when you are dealing with something that is so emotionally heavy that it shuts you down as a writer, even as a friend or as a family member, and you have the lives of everybody that you're working with is kind of depending on you to show up and continue to pour into something and make it the best work that you've ever put together. That's what it's always that way. You know,
Right.
this new record has to save your career. And and so what do? Do you ask everybody to wait on you, or do you show up kind of there, or do you shut it all out and, you know, put your soul at risk to finish a record?
Well, think how many people at that position you just mentioned that give up, that don't, that their love of what they do does not outweigh the negative aspect of what you're talking about. It's like for you guys to push that threshold, it's pretty awesome, man. I mean, I know people that started 100 podcasts in the middle of the pandemic, or bands, or a new career. After 6 months, they got all the rejection letters, or no one's listening, or no one's watching, no one's buying, and they stopped. And it's like, here you guys are. Now, obviously, what you guys do in the music industry is a lot different than me starting a podcast, because it's just me and I don't have to, I'm my own boss, right? But with you guys now and putting this stuff out there the way you are, it's the drive, the continuous drive to push yourselves to maintaining your love of what you do. I think it's so vital, no matter whether you're a singer or a stay-at-home mom or a construction worker. Like, it's just awesome.
Yeah,
I do have to mention that I think that part of the reason why, because I think writers, they can have like short spurts where they worked really well together, like i.e. any one great record made by a band and a producer where they were together once.
Yeah.
But for me, I found in my relationships with outside of business and then with Blake as a friend, I think that the difference of why we've continued to be able to work together is because there's a commitment to self-processing and like internally looking, turning the mirror in, and not only as a human being trying to grow, like know that like I don't want to be done figuring out who I am till the last breath. We agree on that. But two, like to earnestly be able to look at yourself and say again in the process over and over again, what are my motivations? Am I doing this so my mom calls me and tells me how great? Am I doing this so said peer sees my Instagram post and goes, I finally respect that guy? So, like if, and when you say some of that shit outside, when you say it out loud, you're like, what? I don't fucking care.
Right.
I actually really do want to make another good man, so that someone comes up to me and goes, I didn't kill myself because of your song. Right. That's important. That's a purpose beyond me. And I think that that is because of like this rigorous kind of like self like check that we do on each other all the time. I mean, we're making a new record this year and we stop in the middle of the make. I'm not going to but we get into a place where it's time to stop, and I'm Joey the human and you're Blake the human, and we're going to talk about X, Y, and Z before we do any more anything.
That's probably the most
you didn't know a song was going to touch on a nerve from 20 years of some unsettled kind of thing, but you're at this age where you're like, nope, let's talk it out, because why make a song that's like 75% real and 25%
it's kind of
bullshit.
It's kind of like, it's like being an alcoholic or a drug addict, because you never are not.
For me, it's things. Not like me.
Well, yeah, we're definitely, I mean, honestly, we're in a rock band, so
yeah, of course. No, I got you.
Your bombs, but that's for Joey and I as writers. It's the same application. Like, you're never not selfish. You're never not going to try and make this about you. And you have to always try. You're always battling it, because that's just, I think, human nature.
Well, I think there's a misconception too when it comes to that, when you're referring to like ego and selfishness. I think there's a lot of negative connotations with those, and when people do that type of stuff. But there's also, I find, very positive. Like, you should have an ego. You should be prideful of what you've put out there, what you continue to do, because you're at a level where not many people reach. So why not have some ego? I mean, I would say don't direct it towards people that don't maybe understand your drive or your passion. But be selfish. The other day I was talking to someone and they were like, "Oh, I just passed 18,000 subscribers on this YouTube channel," and when I make posts like that, I sometimes feel like, man, this is who cares, right? Like you just talking about Joey, but then I'm like, you know what? For selfish reasons, why can't I openly celebrate my little victories? I think we all deserve to do that, right?
Right.
And it's the people that, oh man, you're just your ego. Oh, you think you're so big and mighty. No, I'm just celebrating the hard work I put in here, and stuff started to happen. Like it's okay to do that, right?
Right. Well, I also think that like if you're talking about the mechanics of running a good business, it's a feelingless succession
Yes.
style approach. So yeah, you have to put the post up because you're not an idiot. You know, and you are proud of your business's accomplishments. But if you think at the end that when you hit send and that
Right.
goes out that you're better than somebody, that's what makes you fucked up,
Right.
in my
Right. Right.
opinion. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, or if you send that out and you're like, well, I'm here at the shelf of personal enlightenment and I don't have to work on anything anymore. Like that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, no, like I think that it's your ability to separate those things within yourself.
Right.
Again, it goes back to like this processing of your motivation for your decisions. And yeah, so I
Well,
think that's important.
and that's the I guess the torment of the artist is that you want what you're working on to be successful, and you compare it to the things that you've done in the past and what you're
Right.
like, "Well, that was successful, I should do that again," or you're it's hard to make completely, I guess, uninfluenced decisions when you're trying to sustain your livelihood.
Right.
You're paying for to keep the lights on, and your art is the thing that does that. So it's like, you know, what is my value as a human? Is it how successful the art that I make is, or is it the fact that what I'm doing allows me to continue to do this,
Right.
or is it, you know,
Well,
everything
I
in
would like
between?
to say too that like I'm crushed under the weight of finding that balance every day. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that's ever going to be a thing where I'm like, I figured out exactly how to run my business without stress and also go home and be a single dad and not have stress. Isn't this amazing? I think literally it's like every day I'm like, wow, this
Right.
shit is heavy. You know, and that's you rely on your friends and processing like that to like get through that.
Yeah.
But I think all of the what we're talking about, I think it's all in our songs too. I mean, a lot of our songs, I mean, we wrote an entire record, Signals, that is based off this book called The Artist's Way. And it's about self-processing and the voice in your head, the sensor, and these things that like how to properly process as an artist. That whole record is about that.
Right.
These signals that come to you as gifts that you're blessed to have. You know, they're not yours. All those things. So
You recently co-wrote the new single "Dead Reckoning" for Pop Evil, and I'm dying to ask you guys this. The song's amazing. You can definitely tell you guys. It's just the whole thing came together great. But how do you know when you're co-writing that? If you go into a meeting with, say, Lee or another band, or whether it's, how do you know "Dead Reckoning" couldn't have been for Devour the Day? Like, do you write in the voice of Joey and Blake, or do you write a song in the voice of Lee, or like how do you know where to separate different songwriting? Uh, because it's like I don't know, that song fits Lee and Pop Evil, but how would it sound like if it was Devour the Day? Like I'm just curious how that works. Like, as you
That's
guys
a
are so in tune with other projects and stuff, it's like Egypt Central sounds different than Devour the Day in the sense of subject matter per se. But
yeah, and I think we pushed the sound of that towards the 2000s. You know, I don't.
right,
We're not trying to like uh, trick our Egypt Central fans into changing the reason why they love that band.
right,
You know what I mean? And we don't have an agenda to put Egypt Central on the Tonight Show next week either. You know what I mean? So it's like we are with Egypt Central, we are creating with John to give the people who listen to Egypt Central music they like, and we don't really care about anybody else
yeah,
outside
it's
of that.
awesome.
Yeah.
that's their niche. They own it and they kept it going. So we actually have a responsibility to them to not fuck that up.
Yeah. It's
but with our own ego.
It's a both and, because at some point it's decided where the song will go, and then we start to keep that in the back of the mind, like this is John that's going to be singing this, or this is Lee that's going to be singing this, or
it's going to be Blake that's going to be singing this.
Right. So it's at some point though, there is a decision that's made, but in the beginning, I think that we are just creating things, and then at some point there's a decision like that this song that we're working on works for this or whatever. But then, as in to say that both and is that there are moments where we're like, we need to write another song that sounds like this for this band, and so we just go straight at it. And that is, between the two, they're both fun, but it's kind of like knowing what you want to do with your life at a young age. Like, that's invaluable, you know? So for a song to kind of be in limbo, like, don't know who it's going to be for, we're just kind of creating it. That's kind of it's a good spot because it's, you know, a great song. But knowing what and how you're going to do things while you're writing a song is it's easier.
I saw an old episode or an old talk show with Quentin Tarantino, and they're asking about the writing process for movies. And he mentioned where he had this idea during one movie, but he's like, I didn't want to write this scene or this dialogue without the right characters. And so he saved it for like 3 movies later. So is that kind of what you guys do in terms of, because when I hear Dead Reckoning, I'm like, this song is fucking awesome. But then I'm back in my mind, like the evil part of me is like, well, what if whoever wrote this, what if there's another line in there that could have made the song even bigger, but this writer thinks maybe 2 albums from now, or maybe it goes on a different popular song or develop. It's like, it's the mental aspect of being creative in writing a song. It's just so intriguing to me.
It's an interesting thing because we have a massive body of work that we have written over the last 20 years. There's hundreds of unreleased songs, literally just there's piles of music. And it is amazing, when something from the past, something will happen in the world and its relevancy and the reason why it was written 11 years ago or 5 years ago or 2 weeks ago becomes very apparent. But to even furthermore on what Blake was saying with the writing process, you know, Blake and I have always, I think deep down, have always had the dream of being songwriters even more than performing artists. And Dead Reckoning is the first song we've ever had released. The fact that it became a single is like mind blowing because we have nothing to do with that. That's the label picking it and the
of course,
and all that. So that was a huge thing for us, but it's the first one after 20 years of trying to break into songwriting that we actually got a chance. So obviously there's a nod to Lee, but I think the reason why it's so cool for us is that Blake and I, we've only had 2 vehicles to release our artwork that we work on, and that's Egypt Central or Devour the Day for so long. And there is the other side of writing, which is collaborative, and getting to work with Drew Folk and KJ, who's now KJ Strouk, who's an amazing guitar player and now co-writing the new Devour the Day. Like, those relationships don't happen without the approach of like really wanting that collaboration. And it is partly about the song, but like the education that comes from working with other people, getting to watch Drew Folk do whatever the fuck he does, any instrument or thing. I'm like, he's just very talented. And so, you know, that's a really exciting part of that, that I think we've learned to keep songs really, really open and not hold on to them and the agenda with which they're like focused for too tightly, because if there's an opportunity where like, hey, you're going to be in the studio with Drew Folk next week, the last thing you want to do is present like 4 pieces or even worse, honestly, show up with 3 pieces you wrote rushed that week.
Yeah.
It would all be, you know, it could be great, but your meter's off. So having this, like, this is what I've always wanted to show someone like Drew Folk or whatever. And then I'll also say even furthermore, Dead Reckoning itself, it even 20 years into writing, taught Blake and I not to assume where the song's going to come from, because that song didn't come from the normal vehicles with which our talent sets like usually put into the, it was actually totally different. And he actually did a majority of what I usually do, and then I came up with something a majority he did. So you know what I mean, like that, getting that excitement from like, holy shit, 20 years in, we're still just getting started. I think that's like the best part of collaboration, and that's why I love Dead Reckoning.
I
It's so
totally
special.
agree. I totally agree. There's like even in starting a label, there's the beginning of it where you realize that like that first return check comes in from streaming from your first song that you release in your label, and you're like, shit, this is gonna be really difficult. But then you've got a lot of songs, you just keep releasing songs and keep releasing songs, and knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, there is a return, that every song matters, everything that you're doing is, you like, there's this metaphor that we learned from a manager that we talked to a long time ago, and he's like it's not about where you're at right now, it's just that you wake up and you keep pushing that ball up the hill.
Yeah, that dude manages 21 Pilots. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like he's like talking out of his ass.
No.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah,
sure.
and
And-
so so it's exciting, and if you love the push, if you love pushing that block or whatever, your bag of bricks or whatever it is up the mountain, then that's what it's, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
owning your own label, writing your own songs, all that stuff. It's like, yeah, at first it can be pretty daunting, but if you really love the process, it's a good place to be in.
And
Yeah,
what's
I think
even crazy, more interesting with especially with Pop Evil having the #1 hits they've had before you guys started writing together, Dead Reckoning is the first one in their career where it's been a Liquid Metal, Octane at the same time. It's like, for that type of validation for you guys, where it's like, when that stuff like that happens, you kind of like, you sit back and like, man, this is pretty cool. Like when you think of how successful this band it is, and here we come along and do something they've never done yet. It's pretty cool.
It is. It is. I personally, because I am so aggressively arrogant as a person.
Yeah, for sure.
I've grown up with such like uh, an ignorant confidence, I would say, when I was young, like just very confident in my taste and all those things. I think validation can be really dangerous. And I found that, like, and so when it's happening, I'm at the same time, maybe it's healthy, I don't know, actually. I'm saying to myself, like, just remember, this is the modern music industry. Next weekend, no one will fucking care.
Yeah.
The really important question to ask yourself, Joey, is what's next? And why are you doing that? And so I do like the validation, but I also know that like validation's a weird thing. I mean, I can speak candidly. Like you spend your entire career trying to get respect from everybody, and then I joined Pop Evil, and like I felt it overnight. People I couldn't get on the phone, people I had this text styles with friends in the business were changing. I could tell people gave more of a shit about what I was doing because I had joined Pop Evil. And that, like, it wasn't like, fuck yeah, I made it, man. I was like, wow, how many hours have I wasted on validation?
Right.
Like I'm actually not sleeping better. I'm sleeping worse because I realized that like everything I thought was true about validation is like, it's all in my head and it's kind of irrelevant. And so
I'd be lying if when Joey called and said, hey, Pop Evil has asked me to be a part of the band and I'm going to take it. My first thought was, oh shit. That's where that's the end of it.
You selfish son of a bitch.
Yeah, I think he said congrats or whatever.
No, yeah. No, and I knew that I was kind of like saying what just needed to be said, which was like, this is good for you. This is good for, this is good for your family. This
well,
is
and
good.
two, for history, Blake had turned down, and I have turned down joining big bands 2 or 3 times, actually. Like Blake's been offered to join large bands and turned it down.
Pop Evil, in fact.
Pop Evil, in fact, yeah. Before,
a long time ago when they were changing drummers, but it was a moment where I knew that, like, okay, I'm just gonna say what needs to be said. This is good for you. This is this is great for your career. This is a positive thing. But the more time I spent with it, I was like, this is actually a very, very good thing. because this is shaking up the tree. And then I actually do give a shit about Joey's life, and I'd care.
Yeah,
that
as a
he grew
human. Yeah.
his career. And so, this, when I put the small me out of the room, the small me was like, but this doesn't help me at all. That's my version that's the voice me. That's the voice of
Dude,
small me.
I wish we had like a little video guy
yeah.
that would just pop up. And
And see, the reason why he has an annoying voice is because it is annoying. That's that small version of me. But
I love
look
that.
at
You've
all
been
the
saying
things
that
that has happened because of him joining this band. We are, like you said, there's a song that is out there, and this is the first time that we are taking a co-write on a large scale by a band that, it was the last band that our younger versions of ourselves ever thought we would be working with. And it's such a good thing, and we could have shut down, like our friendship could have,
Of course.
our working relationship could have been over.
he keeps
but-
reminding me how humble he is. You see?
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
kidding.
Grab more of that coffee.
No. Honestly, for real, Blake is such a supportive human that I was terrified to do anything without him. And that's why I was like, yeah, Lee, we'll write some songs. Well, I mean, I don't know what Blake needs to be here though. That's all I know. He needs to be here. But the reality was like it was shaking up the tree, and it was really scary.
Yeah.
And it was, it's been really cool to, have the expectations, both positively and negatively, kind of be destroyed, because it's actually really exciting to find out that you don't know much. You know what I mean?
Is it tough for you guys? Say, Joey, you are creatively, you're in a rut. Your painting's not in your head. It's not in the right space. You're writing, but Blake is fully ready to go start writing. Is it tough to meet in the middle with that, or do you both have to be firing at the same time, or can one of you take lead if you're having like a bad week mentally and stuff like that?
Oh, I think it does.
Yeah.
Daily.
Yeah.
I think it can happen within the hour.
Yeah.
I will
That's
say,
very
and I speak confidently about this, I don't know that I get ruts. I mean, I get times where I don't like what I'm writing, but I have a lot of confidence in the fact that I'm a ferocious creative person. I create an insane amount of things visually and instrumentally every day of my life. I was out in Joshua Tree, and we were trying to decide if we were going to break Devour the Day up. And Blake and I had a huge conversation. I just talked to my brother. He's successful in the movie industry. And so great advice about motivation. So this is early. This is maybe, let's say 5 or 6 years ago, even a while ago, pre-pandemic. But Blake and I had a real coming to Jesus moment, as they say. And it was like, what do you want out of life? And he said, I want to get up every day. On the outside of, what do you want out of your business life? Let's say, because it's too complex when you start talking about personal. What do you want out of your business life? I want to wake up every day and I want to create. And if we can just keep doing that, I'll be happy. And I said, dude, that's what I want to. And so I think that we have stuck to that like that showing up at your desk, that makes something up every day. Like even like the Taylor Swift thing, like I'm gonna write 365 songs in 1 year, and she did that when she was like 16. I mean, that's kind of like, I should be able to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, they're not gonna be Taylor Swift songs, but shit.
Right. That'd be an interesting approach, though. If you wrote her type of songs, do the voice of Devour the Day. It'd be interesting.
Yeah.
All bad breakups.
Oh, there are plenty. I will say the negative side of that creativity is that I'm difficult to be with.
Yeah,
I know that.
And do you think that's because is it a lack of understanding from a partner that doesn't understand your drive? They can't understand why you do what you do? Because I mean, I've been through breakups and relationships. I've seen relationships thrive. I've seen them just wither at the vine. But the people that I think do survive are the ones that both have a mutual understanding that there's going to be a lot of hurt. There's going to be a lot of pain in what we're going to do, but we're going to do it together. And if we can both stay at the same level there, pick each other up if you have to, but just just push through. God damn it! Like it's just sad when some people just in relationships and stuff fall apart because whether one side gets selfish and one side is understanding, and it's like a lot of work goes into this. We only live one life, and if you're in a relationship, whether it's a person or a job or a career or whatever you're doing, it should be 100-100. These people that do
Yeah.
50-50, it's like you're only giving 50% of yourself. Give 100, have that person give 100, and hold each other accountable.
100%. I mean, honestly, when you ask me like about just relationships, it it actually reminds me of one time my dad had come back from a run and he was walking up the driveway, and I was like 15 or 16. I was just pissed at the world. Innocence had drifted, and I was very angry. It was my first response. Under the fear or over the fear of the uncertainty in life. And I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I just want to figure it out. And he just turned back like so casually. He was like, let me know how that goes. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
like it doesn't happen, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't happen.
He's still looking
think,
for it. Yeah.
right. And so I think for a relationship, even to this day, like I can't speak into any kind of understanding, to be honest. I know that what I can't lie about is that my creativity is so tied to my trauma of my youth and things like that, that like it could take a lifetime of sorting out why that is what gives me the ability to kind of like a foundation, and why it remains second priority right behind my kids. And to be honest, you know, building your career to take care of them kind of runs tandem when it's your kids, you know, like kind of like, whereas like this orbiting relationship thing, you almost like, it can be like a third priority that doesn't necessarily get into that ball of like justifiable action. So yeah, don't come to me for relationship advice. I'll tell you that.
That's a new show. That should be a new show. The Devour relationship hotline. Yeah.
I know that I got a lot of work. Always.
Yeah, I think we all do. I think we should all work on stuff each day.
It's hard to be with a touring guy too. I mean, it's
a
hard thing.
People have no idea what that even means. It's just like, oh, you just appear in the city and do a show. Well, it's like those 12 hours between those gigs and those drives and those roads. It's like there's so much happening inside your brain that, yeah, I think it'd be interesting because a lot of times when you deal with people, it's like even managers, they have no idea what life on the road is. Come out here for a week, do a shitty festival with terrible catering and terrible weather, and do another venue here that has inadequate PA, and then do a venue out here. It's a great arena. And like try to figure out. Then when you wonder why when you call your band or your crew and there's issues and they're just on edge. Well, now you know why.
Yeah, of course.
I compare a tour bus to a submarine because
of farts.
You're farts. Because it's like you're in a situation where you can't just, you know, take a break. You are always on. You're always around people.
Yeah.
And for me, like the personality that I am, like I need a break. You know.
Yeah.
And on the road, I don't get that. So it's like it's all things considered that you're just like scrambling to try and find a place where you can just take a shit and not have anybody smell it.
Right.
You know, that's
the women's restroom.
Yeah. It is on the what I'm trying to say is that life on the road is it is fun, but it's not as easy as people would assume.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a way, it's almost like the industry's own fault, though, because part of the major marketing plan of rock and roll is you don't give a fuck and everything's fun, which is fine on the exterior. But I mean, when you actually get into that, and I think I'm only guessing, but you've been around such legacy bands of a caliber where you understand that like the hardest part is 15 years in, the dynamic of people that got together when they were kids.
Yeah.
No ability to like communicate other than like, let's smoke a joint and have fun and
like,
go look for girls.
Play Edward 40 Hands or in the parking lot after a show.
And that, it's easy to get along when you're doing that.
Yeah.
But then like when, you know, friends have passed and someone's marriage broke up and someone's got 2 kids and like
family dog dies and it throws off the crew for a whole week.
It throws everything off. And I think that like that's just something that you don't really think about until you see like some biopic, but it's always like Elvis. So like,
Right.
how is that actually a window into the regular new jazz active rock guy? You know what I mean? Like
What was that? What was that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio a long time ago where they were on an island?
Titanic.
Oh, the beach.
The
Yeah,
beach.
yeah.
Okay. So being on the road is like that. And then when somebody has this issue where they're dealing with it and it's on the island, it's like, no, you're gonna go to the other side of the island.
Like when they
deal with
put
your
that
own
dude in
thing,
the tent.
because we're having fun over here. And if you bring your cries and screams with your broken leg that's infected that you're probably gonna cut off and all that stuff, like don't do it. Just keep it to yourself. And I think that you take a group of emotionally complex men and women, stick them on a submarine, and make them commit to a month, 2 months. You just have a recipe for at some point somebody's gonna lose it. Somebody can't take the screams. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like somebody just can't deal with this person that's having their own personal issues, and so then they have this reaction and explosion.
Do you
Forgiveness is
guys
a big part of it? Right.
document like your writing process, like in the studio? Like, is that something you guys have thought about where it's like, because you mentioned somebody's biographical films, and I remember was it Anvil? They did that one years ago.
Right.
That I recently watched. I thought it was the most interesting. Like, this is what touring is really like. Unless you're outside of Elvis and all these other major like Johnny Cash films, it's like this is what touring is at this level. Have you guys thought about like documenting your type of like your lives as Devour the Day in terms of, is that something fans would maybe get a better appreciation of what you guys go through?
I think they
talked about
would.
it a lot.
It like conflicts inside me because as a person, I think it'd be really cool to have people know exactly why I'm motivated and why we're doing
Right, of
things.
course.
But as an artist, I know that we're not the right artist to tell that story. You know what I mean? So part of me is like, I'd love to develop the idea and film Shinedown. You know what I mean? Because that's a band that is connected to so many people. But I think it's something that should be done more. You know what I mean? Like, I think like the fact that the only reference point as to what this music is like, unlike most any other genre, is this weird veil of old school mystery. But our inability in rock to let people in is why we've become so marginalized as a genre. And so I feel in some way like it is a responsibility of us to start getting better at that. It's not natural to let people in.
When you look at some of the most like iconic like posts or pictures of bands, some of the most famous pictures of the backstage stuff, or with their family, or like this weird, oh my god, this guy cuts his own lawn, like what the hell? And it's like people like, oh, he's human. And I think there is something to that, because there's only so many times you can look at a picture of someone on stage and be like, oh yeah, he plays guitar. Like, now obviously if the show's changing, that's totally different, but people do like that human, what's behind the Oz curtain there.
Yeah. I was gonna say the dynamic of making something like that is so complex post social media. Like, there's part of me that wants to do it, and there's part of me that just pushes back against this. Like, I guess it's just like you should do this more TikTok kind of like hovering thing. But it's also the reality of running the business too, and like
it's a fine line balancing between what the social norms are, what the big thing is right now, whether it's TikTok or Reels. But if it's not organic to you as the artist, I think to your point, why would you do it? Just to get a couple of new kids that like TikTok and people that grill on their Traeger? Like, no one cares.
Yeah. I will say, when the pandemic was happening, we started to live stream these like creative processes.
Yes.
And that was actually really fun and like terrifying at first. Like, oh my God, this is gonna be
right
weird. Somebody's gonna actually see how shitty I am.
Right.
At my
Blake could
instrument.
actually write with a pen. Oh my God.
But like I think you were mentioning earlier that like it became kind of therapeutic. like actually doing it became something that you liked. And
Yeah.
I would say that like um we've let go of that recently, but it was cool. It was fun to like create in a room full of friends. That was fun.
But
You
it's
know?
curated too. I mean,
Oh yeah.
I know you, and I know obviously, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think even for myself, I realized I was like turning it on or whatever. And I don't mean like schmoozy, I mean like my BS meter is like way up and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like
of course.
turning it on. And I think one of the reasons why it hasn't found its way in is because, like I said, the processing part of like the motivation is such a huge part of what we talk about.
Right.
Like the instant anything felt off, my first inclination would be like, "It's that fucking camera, get it out of here." So it
Yeah.
never even makes it in because why even bring in a factor that I'm gonna cut out in 20 minutes as soon as we have a disagreement? I'm like, I don't want to have this conversation on this fucking camera because I want it to be about the song. I don't want it to be about
Right.
people seeing this moment. So I do think that like
Yeah.
what's cool maybe about the past is like you said, these pictures matters because they know that they're kind of like unsolicited. They are somebody else snuck in and got a picture of that intimacy.
Right.
I think there's a reason why the Beatles didn't release that for so long. Probably is because it like they didn't want anybody to see it for a
Right.
long time.
Yeah.
And then finally they get to an age, maybe I'm assuming, but you go, we're the soundtrack, not the hero. I would
Right.
hope these people deserve to see it because it's
Yeah.
like what makes us all human. It's part of this,
For sure. And
their story.
it was artistically pretty reassuring because watching the Beatles create something in an unfiltered way, sloppy, didn't make sense. They're like screaming into microphones or just, being goofballs. It like it was nice to see that because it's like, oh, okay. They do write really good songs, but they're not always perfect. Like I had
You're
this.
right. They're walking, they're quitting, they're ripping butts out back with George Harrison and
Yeah.
fuck this tour. And
Yeah.
it made it seem I'm not the biggest. I'm more of a Rolling Stone guy. I just like that sleazy, bluesy, more hard rock. But when I watched that documentary of the Beatles, I'm just like, now I get it. Like I respect these songs so much more because they went through the bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think it
Yeah.
made them more human. It's like even if when I go back and listen to this episode again, and I listen to Good Man again, I'll be like, holy shit, this song has a different impact for me now because now I know who these people are. Joey and Blake are now people as opposed to songwriters that wrote a really good song I love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to transition there because as you guys dabble with different artists and stuff, I know Joey, your artwork and your creativity with sneakers, having seen the one you gifted Chris Daughtry after that tour, the one you gave to Lee, and I commissioned you to make a pair for my girlfriend. That it just blew my mind that I didn't realize someone like that could be so creative using toothpicks and just this insane ideas out of your head.
It's insane.
How kind of talk about that, but also when you get part of that sneaker community is rabid. For those that aren't
Oh, it's
aware,
awesome, dude.
people, it's just you have these conventions. I mean, it's like you got like everyone from Zach Myers types to DJ Khaled to Mark Wahlberg. It's like crazy artistry involved. And how receptive is that community towards rock and roll, specifically you guys? If you notice like a cross examination or like a Venn diagram of shoe head freaks and guys that love rock and roll.
Oh, I've seen a little bit of bleed, but one of the coolest things is that they are kind of these separate cultures. And I think that one of the biggest awakenings for me when I got into shoes, I've always been, even if you go back my entire career of shoes, I've always loved shoes. I've always been jealous of Zach, like yeah, like
Yeah.
it's so cool what he has established with his shoe connections and his and the own shine down shoe, blah blah blah. So I always love that stuff, but I think that what I wasn't really like aware of is that like way past music, there's a cultural thing happening in shoes that is raceless. It's like it's not like your social standing. It just doesn't matter the same way. It's kind of a clean slate out there in sneaker land. because it's about the shoe, and then it's about the story of the
Yeah.
shoe. And then so your story collecting, which is amazing. Like really what you're doing is you're collecting who and why these were crafted. And then so being able to kind of like take someone's story, like, you know, the fact that your girlfriend was a gymnast, and that, like, the ability to have that put into a shoe, which is just really a unique thing to try to like paint on and stuff, obviously.
Yeah, it
um
still makes no sense to me, but
but I also, the coolest thing about it is that the real story behind my shoe stuff is 20 years of making artwork and trying to get something to connect as a visual artist within the space. And I started with drawings on drum heads, three,
yeah.
4 years of drum heads, and then prints, and then the shoes, and always trying to like create this place where it just kind of took off. And so yeah, it's the fastest moving piece of creative uh uh output I've ever had a reaction on over anything musically or anything. It's crazy. It really is. But it's I guess it's just been kind of a lesson as to like, um you know, every day that I thought I was working for no reason on
Yeah.
those drum heads, it was, you know. And so, you know, I hate to be like reiterating the same thing, but I mean, I think it really was just confirmation. It's been a lot of confirmation in getting up and working every day and kind of going back to the grind. So but it is it's one of the coolest cultures on the planet to me right now.
Was it fair to
Sneakerhead.
say that there's an equal reaction for you when someone sees your shoe for the first time versus when they hear a song you wrote for the first time? Is
I
that
would
the
say,
same
yeah.
feeling?
I think it is. The shoes, the music has always been, for me, has always been created with other people, and the
Yeah.
shoes are incredibly personal to like my designs or whatever like that. Um, so it is different because it's like it's like a different kind of it is a different kind of feeling, just because it's like almost like more connected to like the way I felt in middle school or something. It's
Yeah.
like a teacher telling me my project's good, you know? Whereas like there's something with the music where it's like there's a responsibility to him and everyone who's made sacrifices to have me there. So that's separate. But the emotion that people feel and stuff, and I will say, like, I don't have a problem speaking into it that when you make rock music, it's primarily for one
Yeah, of
demographic
course.
people.
Yes, for sure.
The shoes have given me the ability to have conversations with every walk of
All
life.
walks of
Like I
life.
go to
Yep.
Sneak Fest and like,
That is not a pun.
yeah.
Just so we're all aware.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm that good. No, I think so. That has been in the last 6 months has been, it's been really like eye opening to me, to how much I value connectivity between all cultures, and not like this separation of well, I'll just sit in my little hole, safe hole, and not try to like
Right.
go back out into the world and improve communication and connectivity. And so the fact that the shoes are the vehicle for that connectivity is like really unexpected, but also just really, really cool. I'm also humbled by the community because I don't have anything in the game except that I'm an artist, you know? So it's like right back down to the very beginning. No one gives a shit. I got
Yeah.
0 followers. I'm psyched. I got 400 now, you know, like that kind of thing. That's been really cool to like essentially start over creatively and see how I react and
Blake,
maybe not make the same mistakes.
has there ever been a time for you, Blake, where you like were just designing merch, or maybe there's a visual component coming up for a new Devour the Day song or whatever, where you're kind of like, God, Joey, like I love your art, but where's this coming from? Like, do you have to like tame him in sometimes when it comes to how he interprets something
What a
Yeah,
good question.
visually?
there are definitely moments where uh like I know my brother, I know the way he works,
Right.
you know, and we've developed this routine where if something needs to be done, we show up in front of our desk and we just make it. And it's like
Yeah.
sometimes it comes around, sometimes it comes easy, sometimes it takes some time, you know. Sometimes you spend, you know, hours just staring at a blank piece of paper.
Right.
And so there are times when he'll work very, very hard on something lyrically, musically, visually, and it's probably one of the more, it is the hardest thing to do when you support somebody, is tell them you're honest, to be
Yeah, of
decisive about
course.
your opinion and it not line up with what they want. That is a difficult situation to be in.
And
But
I think,
Joey
yeah,
being
He's
the
kind of unexcitable too. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
mean that like a
No,
negative
no,
way. So like Blake, over the years, I have no problem creating like 60 things and just throwing them all at Blake. And you can kind of just, I can rely on the fact that Blake, he will not lie about what excites him. He doesn't necessarily have to even give a shit about the stuff he doesn't, because it's already not good enough. You know what I mean? Like, in a way. So he just hones in on the things that are positive, and that's actually
yeah,
great for me, because I go, okay, check, boom, 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 and I need to fix this. And also, as an artist, I think sometimes you're lazy. I
Yeah.
mean, it's good for me to have a friend who go like, can just kind of be silent and kind of be like, could you
yeah. Do
try
we need a
again? I think
skeleton? Like, do we need
yeah,
another skeleton, Joey?
man, I try to get away from skeletons.
They're so good though.
he
That-
likes a good skull. on
That dude, that
shirts.
toothpick stuff you're doing on the shoes with the skeletons, unreal.
It is,
It's
and that there was a big shift in his art, and um like I have noticed that over the past 5 years or so, that like my opinion of what he's working on has gone from like every once in a while being like, I don't like that, to pretty much not happening at all nowadays.
now when you guys write
The
a
stuff he makes
song,
is so good.
and when it comes to the new Devour the Day album and the single art, are you in the back of your mind? Is obviously you want the great song, right? But are you part of you as that gets to the end of the end of that process for that song? Are you already kind of looking at what the visual art will be for the album or the single, or is that something that comes much later once you figure out the layout and stuff of the album?
That's a good question, because
I'm thinking the visual the whole time.
yeah,
Like,
and-
why we're making it. I
Yeah.
speak in visuals, so I'm like,
Okay.
I don't see the character doing this.
yeah. And
Yeah.
even in a video sense too, it's like sometimes the video is there as soon as the first riff is there, because we're thinking like
Yep.
the sensor, we were making that, and we always had the idea that it was going to be a fight between this version of you that hates everything that you do. Ironically, that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, so when we were putting together the actual video treatment, we knew that it was going to be something like it
Yeah.
was, even from the very beginning of it. And which that was like the most fun I've ever had making a video.
Yeah, it was like
but,
we were in the Matrix. It was
uh,
awesome.
but yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, it's usually we are thinking visually right from the beginning.
Yeah, I can't help it.
Him very much more than I am.
Well, I think a strong visual. When you think of like a good song or album, it's like if the music's there, it's obviously there. But I don't think, and maybe this is just me talking, but I love Pink Floyd, but when you look at Dark Side of the Moon, yes, the songs are great, but when I see that album cover time and time again, I'm like, this is a masterpiece. And I think it's it's the songs, but it's the art too. It's that
Yeah.
legendary thing, and I think so many times people just release stuff, or I've been following, and I love Zach Bryan, who's like this folk Americana singer. Former veteran, but all his single and album art is just simple pictures of him, whether smoking a cigarette or kicking a tire, and it just makes those songs more impactful. And I think like the Time and Pressure with Goodman, I think it makes that song and album that much different, because the album art isn't typical of what you normally see in rock, and I think that's what makes that, for me at least, just pop off and come together really well.
Yeah.
Agreed. And we've made the decisions to make more stereotypical rock covers that I, even a few days ago, think back, like we could have had more of a hand in pushing that a certain way or whatever. But
Right.
I think what's actually exciting for me about the artwork and where the positivity of the industry now is that in this single driven marketplace that we have right now, it's the first time since really the 90s that I felt you can shuffle through and you're going to hear the song and you're going to be presented with the cover image. And that is your initial judgment of the band, but that's also a really cool way of discovering music. Like that was a really big deal. There are some of my favorite records that I discovered because of the album cover. 100%.
Oh, I'm judging books
100%.
by the cover. I hate when people say don't judge a
Yeah.
book by the cover. As a kid, if that Scholastic Book Fair booklet had a cool cover on it, I'm buying that book.
Right.
I-
And I think
yeah,
actually you can
that's so
tell a
true.
lot by a
Yes.
cover
Yeah.
because it's like,
Yes.
you know, so we could actually have a podcast
Yeah.
about why that doesn't make. I think that that should just go, don't judge.
Yeah,
Period.
don't judge.
Fuckhead.
Yeah.
But when it comes to album art specifically, there's this saying that doesn't make any sense unless you're talking about this, but people hear with their eyes,
Yeah.
and so when you look at a cover, knowing that it's an album, and you look at it and you see a guy, black and white, smoking a cigarette, sitting by himself, you know that what you're about to get into is going to sound like that looks.
Yeah.
And I think that's just,
I think too, like there's a part of it, like especially with singer songwriters, it helps me to know that like that person's in tune with who they are. Because if it's like Jim Croce style music, but they're presenting themselves as flashy, I don't buy it for a second.
Yeah.
So like somebody else wrote it.
Yeah.
But you get the salt of the earth picture, and you get the salt of the earth music, and you're like, I want to hang out with this dude. I want to have a beer. This is a dude. I can listen to the advice he's giving me.
Right.
He's being honest.
Yeah.
So
a naked baby in a pool. Like, I get that.
I hate that guy.
Yeah.
How many
You
times
don't
he
want to be
sued
the
now?
naked baby.
Yeah,
Have
for
you-
sure.
That guy's
dude.
life,
Dude,
man,
stop.
brutal.
Uh,
Not processing.
yeah, it's
Naked
cold.
baby
It's
from
it's,
the
it's
cover.
cold in here, guys. So before I let you guys go, this has been awesome. I could literally talk for hours, but I know you guys. We got new Devour the Day stuff coming. We got tour with Pop Evil coming this March. In terms of, I know you guys can't really say much, but is it safe to say that there will be new music this year? There will be maybe possible Devour the Day shows outside of what you guys are doing with Pop Evil and stuff, or is that a unfair assessment?
No,
New
it's
music for sure.
new music for sure. I think that one of the things that Blake and I have come to really value in our decision-making process is our independence. And so one of the coolest things about the process in 2023 for Blake and I is that we don't necessarily know what's going to happen.
I like that.
And it makes it really exciting again.
Yeah.
We know that we have a mantra that is no song left behind. No track will be treated like an album cut. No label will ever push us to finish a song before it's done ever again in our life.
Yeah, just throw it on there.
Yeah.
It's a
Oh, I guess that's
great
track
thing.
8. Go fuck
It's
yourself.
done.
I'm done with that.
You
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
are-
You got your single, ruin the ethics of your soul. No worries. But so that has made it to where you can't actually decide on the future because the artwork will dictate when you're allowed to ask what's next.
Right.
And so with that, I'm just really excited that that's where we're at with touring. I absolutely love the one of a kind feeling that is the transfer of energy from the people in the crowd into
Yep.
my body, whatever that is so tangible and real. So I'm excited to feel that. But I do want to feel that with Devour too. And I like playing in a hat. So I want to.
It seems like a no-brainer to have Devour the Day and Pop Evil tour together. Like it seems.
It's been discussed. It has been discussed. I think.
It's a lot for Joe.
It-
2 shows.
Well, I was
back
gonna
to
say
back.
that was the question. It's like physically and mentally, like it's. I mean, I
This
don't know.
guy,
I
his
mean,
shoulders
God.
are up,
I
his
think I can
hands
handle
are
it.
up. He's
I don't know if my knees could, but
Yeah.
I'd try. I think
Joey Little Rock over here.
Joey Chicago Little Rock.
I think I think we just have like a kind of a careful meter as to when are
Of
we
course.
like abusing Lee's kindness. You know what I mean? At some point it's like and I don't think he would ever make us feel like that, but I think it's also to the respect of and the honesty with ourselves of like we have to create the things that give Devour the Day
Yeah.
the value that would put us on a tour like that. I mean, Pop Evil's not a small band and they're out taking really cool bands with them. We have to earn the ability to do that. We don't just get that ride because I'm
Yeah.
in Pop Evil. And so I definitely would rather it happen organically.
Of course.
But dude, I love to play and we're really excited. Blake will be off the guitar at this point. So we're bringing in a guitar player as well. And so him unleashed, as it were, like he was on Pop Evil. I think that was something that I hadn't necessarily seen. And then I look at Blake without not pinned to a guitar. I'm like, that's a totally different singer. This is exciting. Like
But
let's do
Yeah.
that.
We've kind of always we in our shows, even when we were in I guess this was pre-pandemic, but this is a while back. There was a moment where I put the guitar down and I jump out of the crowd and we just have this crazy moment. And that feels a little bit more natural,
Yep.
even though I want to hide behind that guitar,
Yeah.
because I need something to do with my hands. You know what I mean? Like this is, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, because you're like, what do I do?
Well,
And when it's not something that yeah, right. I'm not a pointer.
Right. Is that the guy from Styx? Yeah,
Is
for
that
sure.
show
dude,
hands?
the
Show
best
hands are
pointer
not my
ever was
thing.
Josie Scott. I mean,
Oh,
we
yeah.
grew up on like click, click, boom. You know, he like knew exactly what to do with his hands all the time.
So, but we would play more aggressive music when I put the guitar down, and that felt natural. Like I feel, I
Yeah.
don't know, there's something about that feels good. So, we're gonna take a run at that.
Yeah.
And
Love it.
super excited about it.
Yeah, the guy that we are working with, like, because I think it's something that we should mention because it's been something that Blake and I have looked for a long, long time. He is formally, or not formally, he is at heart a drummer, and that's his first instrument. Even though he plays guitar, and I'm bass all the way through all the bands I've been in. That's what I love playing, like a true bass player. But we always talked about finding a gunslinger is what I call it, and that's just a dude who's so fucking good at the guitar that like you just can't get into his world.
Right.
And so when we worked with KJ, who co-wrote like Eye of the Storm and Breathe Again, Waking Lions, he's working on Veil of Maya and Born of
shit.
Osiris, like heavy stuff. And then he's now Grammy nominated for an MGK song he wrote. Like seeing a guy who's that good at guitar, but then genre jumping like that, like it was a really cool, unique human being to meet. And the fact that we all got along was
Yeah.
even cooler.
Yeah.
So the difference with this new Devour the Day is that we found that fucking gunslinger, and this shit is fucking awesome. So I'm really excited. This is like I'm really excited about the new music. And then Blake's got a feature on the new Pop Evil as well. So I'm really excited for people to hear that song that we co-wrote, and that's like a really Devour the Day-ish type of track too. So again, it's just exciting to see what's going to happen. I don't know.
No, it's awesome. This has been amazing. It's always weird for me to talk to people I'm a fan of, if that makes sense. But you guys, it's awesome. I have a whole newfound appreciation towards Devour the Day and everything you guys do. And I know you guys are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, LinkedIn. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way? Like, where can people get the most up-to-date content to see what you guys are up to?
I think going to our personals on Instagram, I have a master link that kind of goes to everything, link tree to everything that I'm doing, and Instagram's been a jump off point for me.
Yeah, YouTube. I think that is something that we you can always see our newest releases, YouTube Central, Devour the Day there, and then our socials. Yeah,
and then we are going to put an aggressive push on TikTok. So if you want to see Blake singing a lot and working in the studio and a lot of other things as I go out on the road and he stays home, we are going to start to give a little bit of a window into that process.
Yeah, I think it's smart, right? If you do it creatively, I think it's a good avenue to get people to be like, oh, I like these guys. Like I think during the pandemic, I watched Pop Evil go from, or not Papa Roach go from, dude, what Jacoby, what are you doing, to holy shit, I get it now. Like I get that new generation of kids that only grew up with TikTok, whereas all of us, we didn't have TikTok, we didn't even have Facebook. And so why not dabble in that avenue and see if you can get some fans or people that just gonna appreciate you guys as someone else.
Yeah, too. And I think that the environment has changed. It's become more creative. I mean, when it was first coming, I just don't have a good enough ass for that. Sorry.
Yeah, like I can't twerk for 40 minutes a day, man.
I don't have it.
Right.
I don't have it. But now that it is kind of this, I really see some incredible creatives on there. I mean, I talked to a booking agent yesterday who just booked a worldwide tour for a band. It's sold out in 48 hours, and they've played 6 shows, but they are massive on TikTok. I think part of it is like, wow, that's really cool. And part of it is like, better swallow it, old dude. This is where we're going.
Yeah.
Time
The
to
people
get
that
your
just
shit
knock,
together.
the people that just push TikTok and say, "Oh, it's just a fad." Well, right now, this fad is the number one thing right now. Outside of YouTube, it's the biggest social media thing going. So it's like, yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah, and I think I haven't before because insecurity and fear and why I gotta hate on other people because they have gotten past that already. You know what I mean? I don't care what their motivations are. Whatever mine are.
Just
I
give
gotta
the
check that way.
people, give the people a sea shanty with some twerking. I'm telling you, it's gonna
Just
hit the
if we
masses.
give a
Shanty.
solid like cleavage shot while you're singing, I
Oh.
feel
Yes.
like that'll be
I feel violated right now.
well. You're the lead
Yeah.
singer. You
Yeah.
are violated.
But thank you guys for everything. Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Blake. And I'll see you guys on the road soon.
Yeah, thank you for having us, John. Appreciate it, man.
Oh, hello. I'm just enjoying this nice fucking candle. Anyways, I'm John, the host of Spirit Talk, and I want to talk to you about nice fucking candles. We are lucky to have Nice Fucking Candles as a sponsor of the podcast. And if you use code SPIRITTALK15, you get 15% off your first order, or use the affiliate link below to always get your candle needs through Nice Fucking Candles. Nice Fucking Candles are 100% soy wax. They have a 65-hour burn time, maybe more if you nurse the flame a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, I'm not an expert on flames or candles, but I will say these things burn a long fucking time. You ask me about the wick. It's a double wick for even burning, which is amazing. And they come in 3 incredible flavors. I'm not sure if you're going to be eating these candles, but if you do like them, the scents are eucalyptus and ginseng, tobacco and fireside, and seaside and driftwood. Once again, Nice Fucking Candles. They are the candle company for Spirit Talk. And if you love candles and need a good scent to clear out your office, your room, your podcast room, your weight room, your whatever you're doing in a room that smells like crap, use this candle. It's amazing. Thank you. Check them out. Love Nice Fucking Candles.